Hi everyone, this is Leaving Footprints. This is Ankit,
This is Mira.
and today we have another great episode in store for you.
So I'm very excited to be speaking to today's guest, Brittany O'Brien. Brittany is a music photographer who has experience taking both performance shots and candid offstage shots. I really appreciate her photos, and I think her photography style is very expressive, and she has the vibes of touring with the musicians. And personally, I think that she has a lot of variety of IG and web. And on her website, she has a lot of variety of photos. And without further ado, hi Brittany, how are you this morning? And can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, thanks for having me. I am doing well. I am a music photographer. I live in Los Angeles, originally from the San Francisco Bay Area. It's kind of where I got my start. And I really enjoy music and kind of being involved in the scene. I don't play any instruments, but I really wish I did. So my camera is kind of like my window to being part of music.
Yeah, I really like that the camera is the part of being in with music. The first question I wanted to know was what made you get into photography as a profession in the first place?
I was kind of the person in high school that documented everything my friends did. I had like a little point and shoot camera, and I would just bring that to school, and I'd bring it outside wherever we went and take photos of everything. I just loved kind of remembering everything. So my friends started playing in bands in high school, and after I graduated, I moved to San Francisco and met a couple local bands there, and realized that I could kind of document the way that I did in high school, but with people in bands. And I was just a huge fan of music. So I kind of combined the two loves, and at first it didn't feel like I could make a job out of it, but I'm very much the type of person that is determined to do what I want. And so I was very much like, I'm going to figure out how to make this into a job. So it took a while, but here we are.
So you kind of mentioned that your environment kind of, especially your environment in high school, kind of just like encourage you and give you that push to kind of go for it. So was there any specific moment where you kind of already knew that, okay, this is kind of what I wanted to do?
Yeah, there was a very specific moment. It wasn't until after I had moved to San Francisco, but Finish Ticket, the first band I ever toured with, they let me come document them on some of their shows they were playing with 21 Pilots on the Blurry Face tour. So 21 Pilots kind of big tour right before they turned into superstars, and I was out on that tour and driving around with them in the van in Seattle, and I was like, this is the coolest thing I could possibly do. I need to figure out when I get back home how to do this again. So that was in 2015, in I think October or September. And that was really the moment where I went home and worked hard to become a full-time photographer.
Honestly, that's really admirable that you kind of are pursuing something which is your passion. And it's really, I think it's just encouraging to see that people going out pursuing something in the arts, because I think a lot of people do have stigma about that.
Oh, definitely. And it's a bummer. I really wish there wasn't there's a lot of stigma from parent or any kind of like authority figure in people's lives, and hopefully that's changing. But a lot of people are discouraged to kind of follow their artistic dreams, and I think that's a bummer.
Yeah, so two things. You can't see my video, but I'm like smiling a lot because I actually found you because I was following Finish Ticket like with their music and concerts, and then I was into like photography at the time, and I noticed like their pictures, and that's how I found you. And
Awesome.
yeah, it's super cool. And then just mentioning 21 Pilots and that whole era kind of thing. I remember being super bummed because I didn't get to go to the Finish Ticket 21 Pilots concert, and I like both of them.
No.
So, but it's all good. I saw both of them after like a couple of times anyways. And then the second thing, since we're talking about kind of like the stigma of pursuing career in arts, I wanted to kind of go off of that. You know, like it could stop people from pursuing their dreams. And I don't know personally, but it seems like the stigma might be less than before because I feel like there's more of a demand for creatives now. And so did you ever have to deal with like the discouragement or internal struggle to pursue this career in photography? And if so, like what did you do to overcome that challenge?
That's a great question. I had nothing but support from my immediate family, which was really awesome. They were very much like, you know, you do you. But I had a lot of internal struggle because it's incredibly difficult career to pursue, and you face a lot of rejection from the world and from, you know, in emails and a lot of critical feedback, and it doesn't feel like it's a possible thing to do. So there's plenty of times where I'd be like, this is crazy, I should pursue, in quotes, a real career. But I also was just incredibly determined to kind of fight against that that negativity and kind of find my way. So I didn't ever let it fully discourage me from keep going.
Yeah, I really admire that. I always admire seeing people pursuing careers in arts, like with photography. And my sister, she's a pastry chef, and it's just like, it's very admirable because you're kind of, you know, like quote, like what you're saying, quote, from like a normal job, you're kind of straying away, and that takes a lot of courage. And obviously like you're dealing with internal struggles, and like you said, the world is rejecting you, and it's just like, it makes such a strong person, I feel like, to go that way. And I personally appreciate it as well because it's a very expressive career with photography and pastry chef. Like I really appreciate that, just seeing that.
Oh, thank you. I mean, I think it's awesome that you guys are out here starting and running a podcast. You know, same kind of thing. You're doing something a lot of people think that they could do but don't do. So it's the same kind of thing. You know, running something creative. It's pretty awesome.
Kind of going off that, so you spoke about the different bands you've worked with, and I think a lot of our listeners spoke about like how they liked when our previous guest spoke about dealing with imposter syndrome. Can you kind of talk about like how you've been dealing with that, because that is something which a lot of people do kind of experience during just like when they're working in the professional field, especially in the arts and everything.
Yeah, definitely. I deal with I deal with a pretty, you know, I go in waves of being really confident that I should be here and doing what I'm doing and that I'm good at it. And then like every creative, I'm sure you deal with waves of, this is insane, I'm falling behind, I don't feel like I belong in this career. And it's just something that I think when you're pursuing a independent and like self-run, self-employed kind of freelance-based career, you're going to have to deal with those struggles. I don't think they ever really go away, and it's a bummer, but there's a lot of encouragement from the people around you reminding you that you're doing this for a reason. And I think that can help pull myself and, you know, other creatives out of those moments of doubt, as being reminded by the people you care about. So I think being a freelance artist really requires a pretty good like security system from the people around you, or like a team of people that are there to remind you that why you're doing it and encourage you to continue doing it. I think social media is also a nightmare. It's nothing but bad for everyone, in my honest opinion. I don't think it's a good thing really, except for like kind of showing people the larger world outside of their circle. I think that's the great part. But in terms of self-esteem, and especially in the creative world, I think it's nothing but bad. So kind of having people remind you that it's, you know, nothing, stop comparing yourself to other people, or you know, it doesn't matter what people think of you online, just kind of post what you want. I think those are all important aspects to keep you from dealing with severe imposter syndrome.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think it's really important to just remember to be true to ourselves, because I think we kind of think we have to present a version of ourselves to other people to appease them. And I completely agree with you that it's important to kind of encourage everyone around us to just be comfortable in their own skin and just like be themselves. So you kind of spoke about like the people around you've kind of influenced you a lot. So Do you have any influences when you were starting off, like your friends, your family, other photographers, mentors, etc.?
Oh, totally, absolutely. My biggest influence was a photographer named Andy Barron. He was Foster the People's photographer at the time, kind of in the peak of their Pumped Up Kicks era. And I was obsessed with his work. He was so good at capturing them behind the scenes. And the Foster the People at the time never really credited him online. So I had no idea who he was for the longest time, but I was just obsessed with their photos. And when I found out who he was, I just couldn't get enough. I would just look at his work all the time. So he was huge for me. And then I discovered this other artist named Pune Ghana. And she is a portrait and live music photographer who still to this day is probably one of my biggest influences. She's an incredible artist. So early on, those two were like my immediate influences, with the larger icon in my life being Annie Leibovitz. She's just, you know, everything I've ever wanted to be. But the three of them kind of molded my my journey a little bit, helped me kind of become who I am in a way.
Yeah, that's awesome. Going off of that, I guess, like, so you're talking about who were some influences, and I guess what gives you inspiration, and like what is your favorite image about?
Oh, it's interesting. That's a good question. I find a lot of inspiration in the mundane, in normal day-to-day life. I think being able to photograph and find beauty in something that you look at all the time and looking at it in a new way, that's like looking at it in a way that makes you want to frame it, I think is a big centerpiece to my work. My favorite thing to do is kind of just like capture moments that seem very regular and make them into something that's lasting. So I love to just look out the window and find inspiration just by looking at, you know, dead trees or birds sitting on like branches, or just something very simple and kind of looking at it in a new way. So a lot of my favorite images are just raw energy like that, just really raw moments. And the one that comes to my head most often when I think about that is a photo that I took of the guitar player of Hippocampus, Nathan Stalker. He's looking out the window of our bus, and we're at a bus cleaner, like a car wash, and he's just looking out the window at the moon, but just sitting there. You know, the bus window is all wet from the car wash, and his face is reflected with the moon in the window of the bus. But it wasn't framed at all or thought about. I just kind of pulled out my camera and took it. And those kind of moments, I think, are my favorite types, just real things.
Yeah, I love that. And like it goes hand in hand, I feel like, with you know, like touring with the band, like you're not really just like waiting for a moment, but you see something and you just click a picture and it ends up being something beautiful.
That is the goal.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I also like I like that because I try to take photos as well. Like I'm not like a professional or anything, but I get so discouraged sometimes where I'm just like, well, I don't know what to take a picture of. Like there's nothing around me. But it's like kind of inspiring, you know, you just take a picture and like obviously put some thought into it, but it's like you don't have to have like something perfectly framed or an idea in mind. Like you can just take a picture and see how that goes.
Yeah, that's what I do every day as practice. I just walk around LA and I'll just look at stuff, be like, this church, the way the light's hitting this church is really cool. I'm just gonna take a picture of it. But it, you know, it's the same thing that's been there for 100 years. So it's just, I like to just practice by photographing basically nothing, just life.
It's all about perspective.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think the aspect that it's extremely spontaneous kind of just makes it even better. That this was not necessarily a planned moment. I think, as you said, like super raw. So I think another question which I would have is that what has been the most unique experience in your career so far?
Oh, it's a good question. Oh, man. Let's see. The most unique experience I've had was probably getting to go to New Zealand with Hippocampus last March. That's very March 2019. That's a very kind of untoured area. People go to Australia and then go to
Right.
Korea, but New Zealand doesn't really, bands don't really find themselves there a lot. So we got a very unique opportunity because one of the members of the band has family there. So in between their Australia and Korea leg, we kind of got to go spend a week, 7 or 8 days in New Zealand, and kind of like take a break because the tour we were on was like 14 months. So there wasn't much time to rest ever. So getting to go and rest in like on an island that not many people I know have got to visit felt really special, and really kind of upped my love for the idea of tour and just the adventure that you don't know what's going to come next. I didn't know a month before that I was going to be in New Zealand. So it was just really special to kind of get to end up there photographing in a place I'd never thought I'd visit, and kind of like learning more about my subjects in like a restful atmosphere versus working all the time. And it was just probably something I'll never do again. So it was really special.
Yeah, New Zealand seems like a beautiful place to be in. So that's really awesome.
Really awesome.
Yeah. So my next question is, because you're speaking of these, unique opportunities, like you got to go to New Zealand and you also got to take pictures of 21 Pilots and Finish Ticket together. So just for people also listening, like how do you set goals for yourself with freelance photography? Like, can you explain maybe the process of finding these opportunities, or, like working with specific bands or people?
Yeah. So basically, I guess to answer this question, I'm going to talk about something else really quick. That I'm doing a project right now focusing on crew members around the country and how they've been suffering and surviving during COVID-19. So all these kind of people that tour, and I've been talking about a little bit about this with the people I'm interviewing, because a lot of them have ended up in their positions based on waiting and just seeing what would happen when it comes to opportunity. So a lot of careers on the road come out of nowhere, and it's kind of one of those life decisions where you say, do I take this or do I not? And either way, it's going to change your life a little bit. So the Finish Ticket and 21 Pilots, that was just insane opportunity for me because the band was offered this and they almost turned it down in the beginning. Because they're like, our music doesn't sound like that, we probably should wait and find a different tour, but they were like, no, let's do it. And so therefore, I got to end up there. So it's a lot of like on the spot decisions. The very first tour I ever did outside of Finish Ticket was with Fits and the Tantrums, and it was because they had seen my work with Finish Ticket while we were touring together, and they offered me the job kind of on the spot on tour with Finish Ticket. Their tour manager was like, do you want this or not? And kind of just have to, I was terrified of the idea of leaving the only band I knew and starting a job with a band I had never worked with, I didn't know, and sleeping on their bus. And you just kind of have to say yes to extreme decisions in freelance. Sometimes extreme decision might be it's unpaid, or it might be like a 5-hour drive, or just like things that seem uncomfortable and not worth it will end up being worth it down the road later. So that's what I think everyone that's on the road has learned, is you got to say yes to the extremes to get a career here.
Yeah, I really like it's like kind of inspiring even just outside of that field, because I do think taking risks and being more spontaneous usually always ends up in a really good experience. Personally, like with this podcast, I was terrified. Like I am a very anxious and not not extroverted, so I was super scared, but doing it I realized like this is helping me a lot, and like with talking and getting to know people. So I totally agree, like taking that risk and just going for the most extreme, I feel like it does always end up helping in the end.
Yes, awesome. I'm glad to hear that.
So you were talking about your travel experiences with like the bands you've worked with, but due to COVID, of course, we can't travel around. So I think your job must have had a hit over there. So how did you keep yourself busy and could just kind of keep yourself active in the professional world and also outside the professional world?
Yeah, it's been a wild year. I am a man, I love to be busy. I love projects. So I, as soon as COVID happened, looked at it as an opportunity to try something new and to kind of pivot into an unexplored territory for me personally in photography. So I kind of use it as an opportunity to photograph the people around me instead of the artists, including myself. I practice a lot doing portraits with me and kind of on nature, and I would just go on photo walks and photograph, you know, like COVID things that I'd never seen before, you know, the grocery store being out of food or the signage that said just weird signs. And it was just kind of like, I thought a unique once in a lifetime opportunity to kind of slow down, do nothing and practice. So I just kind of looked at it as an opportunity, I guess, an opportunity through despair. And I turned it into a project called From Lockdown with Love, which is all about just kind of the stuff I saw in the beginning period. And I ended up using FaceTime as a tool and was photographing a lot of the artists I work with through FaceTime. That was a fun period. So I just kind of kept myself busy with projects, and then I ended up landing a grant that is now funding me to do this project about crew workers in America and how the touring industry kind of is the last to open. So that has been my whole focus since December, is this project, and probably will be all year. So I've luckily kind of stayed busy in photography, but you know, I'm not staying busy in the world that kind of I love, obviously, which is live music. So professionally, it's been a challenge to feel like staying engaged in that sector of the world. So I've kind of wanted to get offline, spend less time like worrying about, you know, the people that follow me and that care about what I post. And for a while there, it was like the people they don't care about anything outside of live music. So like, why should I have a social media profile anymore? And I had to kind of deal with realizing that doesn't matter. So that goes back to the, you know, imposter syndrome that we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's been a good year, I think, overall for just creativity and learning.
yeah, I'm excited to see more about your crew members project that you're working on with the COVID-19 stuff. Also, like, I noticed, I think on your Instagram, you posted about women who tour, which I'm also really excited to learn more about, because I feel like that's a really interesting subject that people don't usually talk about. I'm not entirely sure, but it's not something I've really looked into before. So I'm excited.
Oh, totally. That kind of was born out of the idea of this project I'm working on, the Coop project. When I was trying to find people to interview, you know, a lot of the touring world is just white men. So I had to kind of dig layers deeper to get women and people of color in this project, because I want to represent everyone that tours. And I was like, this is crazy that it's this hard to find women that are like, besides photographers, there's a lot of female photographers, but that are doing monitors or front of house or driving, any of the other jobs. So I mean, I have at this point found a lot, but it took a while. And I was like, there should be a space for bands to hire, you know, females, instead of always having the excuse, we don't know anyone that's a woman in that job. Yeah. So I was like, they're out there, but you know, people just don't know who they are or where to find them. So I thought it would be a cool space to just host people's resumes that artists can kind of go and be like, oh, you know, this woman, she does lighting. Let's check her out and maybe bring her on the road. So it's just kind of thought it'd be a cool tool to get women who work in the industry out on tour and known about, and then a space where those women can kind of leave tips and talk about their experiences with getting on the road for women that want a career in touring but don't know where to start, because, you know, there's not really much taught about it, especially to young women in school, that you could be doing monitors or mixing sound for a band. So it felt like a cool space to kind of get women interested in careers that have been historically kind of all men all the time.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. Like being able to provide these opportunities that maybe some women didn't even know they could get to, and learning from other women. Like that is important in every field. It's like we're in the field of data analytics, and I feel that here too. So I think,
bet.
yeah, so I think it's really amazing that you're providing this platform for women who want to go on tour.
Yeah, it's I'm really hoping it turns out the way I want it to. There's a lot of how do I say this right? There's a lot of like performativeness when it comes to kind of, I don't know how to, like, women in the industry there, and not a lot of action. So I've noticed that, people will say that they want to like do something or get on board with this, but then don't actually want to put in the work, just kind of want to say that they're part of it.
Yeah.
And I just don't really want it to kind of look like that. That's not at all what I'm trying to do here, is have like I'm a good person, here's my cool thing movement. I want it to be a real tool. So before it becomes out in the world and functionable, I want to make sure it's truly that, and not just a thing that didn't work right. So it's a pretty far out. I think it's going to be a while, but I want it to actually be a real thing before it is fully born.
Yeah, I'm excited to, hear about all the success, because it's such an important thing to provide. And I just want to say, today is March 7th, right? And International Women's Day is tomorrow. So it's really awesome that we're talking about this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, do you have, going off just that, since tomorrow is International Women's Day, do you have anything you want to say to like our listeners who are women in any field, in photography, just generally?
Yeah, I mean, I think that women in every field are doing incredible things. This past like decade has been such a growth period for women around the world, and I think that being able to see each other and in every field online, and see and be inspired by other women across the world and across genres of jobs has really made people realize that they're not alone in the way that they have felt in the workplace or the way they've been treated on the street. And it's been cool to see all the men around the world kind of realizing what women have gone through their whole life, or since the foundation of time. So I think there's been a lot of growth, and it's really exciting to see so many women lifting each other up these days and kind of helping each other be better. And along with a lot of the men in our lives, all the men in my life have been nothing but supportive and treated me as an equal. So I hope that that continues and more women get to experience that. So for everyone out there, that's a woman who's listening, just know that there's so many other women listening who love you just the way you are.
Yeah, I agree.
So what advice would you give to someone who is trying to pursue photography as a career path?
Let's see, that's a good question. I would give the advice that you truly can't give up. You're going to want to a lot. You're going to face rejection, and you might send 100 emails to get one response, but that one response could change your life for the better. So I think it's important that people, if they're really serious about pursuing a career in photography, that they have to understand that you're going to have to be grinding for years before you see success. And as long as you're okay with putting that kind of filter on and realizing, okay, I'm going to be rejected, but at some point I won't be rejected anymore, I think you're going to have a successful career. So you can build up a confidence level early on, knowing that, and able to implement that throughout your career, then I want you to just go for it and pursue it.
That's really admirable. I think, especially kind of just going off what you said earlier as well, taking risks and kind of being true to ourselves, while also just taking chances is really important. I think for me personally, coming to the grad program, starting this podcast, as Mira said earlier, these are all kind of chances which we take, and we don't know where it's going to go. but I think it's all working. It's going to work out the best if we can. So, but yeah. Where are the places where like our listeners can reach out to you if they have more questions and they just kind of want to talk to you about certain things?
Totally. The best way to do that is through my email. I'm horrible at responding to DMs anywhere else. So my email is just my name, Brittany O'Brien, and then the word photo at Gmail. And I will definitely respond to emails. So people
We'll
kind of hit
share
me up.
the email in the description. So if anyone wants to reach out to Brittany, please feel free to do so.
Thank you so much, Brittany. I really appreciate our conversations today. I think we highlighted some really amazing, topics, like just taking risks, going
100%.
for it. And then also just the last part that you were talking about, not giving up. You're going to face rejection, but you need to know that it's going to work out in the end. I could really relate to that too. I'm going to be searching for a job soon and I'm ready
Yeah.
to be rejected basically, but I think it's
love
going to
it.
work out. Yeah. Like it'll work out.
Hopefully you're not.
Yeah. I mean, it'll work out in the end is what I think like the big picture
Exactly.
is. So thank you so much for all that. I really appreciate it.
Totally. Thank you
again
guys
so
for
much
having
your
me.
time. Thank you again for
Yeah.
your time. I think it was a really good conversation which we had with you. Yeah.
All right.
Great. I'm glad to hear it. And yeah, I appreciate you guys deciding to talk to me. That was awesome. So I'm excited to hear more of these and thanks again for having me on.
Yeah. Thank you everyone for
Thank you,
listening.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.